Hello, everybody. Good evening. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and I am back for our bonus session on day 2 of the Career Prosperity Rescue Workshop. And unfortunately, in Richmond, Virginia right now, or at least where I am located in the area, there is a storm blowing through. So if we lose power, I'm really sorry. I have my flashlight here just in case, so I can at least find my way downstairs. It's pretty dark here in our neighborhood when we lose power. So I'm hoping that we don't lose power, of course. But if I'm gone all of a sudden, that's definitely what happened. And if it were daytime, I would certainly just switch to my phone if that happens. And, but if I'm going to be sitting here in the dark, I'm probably not going to want to try to do a video. That's a little creepy and weird. So let's just fingers crossed that the power doesn't go out, period. I just hate when the power goes out, but definitely not during my live stream. It shouldn't go out, right? So anyway, thank you all for being here. As I always say, I know it's hard to make it to all these sessions live. So, I don't know if any of you are on yet live or not. If you are, please say hello in the chat. And if not, and if you're watching this on the replay, that is super as well. All the sessions are available on replay in the videos area. So I don't like to make these too long in the evening because I know you guys already were watching the afternoon live, and it's just want to make this so it's valuable for you, but not so much information, that it's like an overload of information. So this evening, I wanted to talk a little bit about work environment and evaluating work environment in the interview process. So last week, I talked about this topic a little bit in our Career Chat Live weekly show. And I talked about evaluating environment, and really more talked about evaluating what you want in your environment, in your work environment. And tonight I want to talk a little bit more about how to actually evaluate that, how to ask the right questions so that you can evaluate that and you can figure out, oh, hi, Kimberly. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I love when people give me that feedback. Thank you. I'm happy that's helping you. So when you go, so it's great to say, oh, we'll evaluate, in the interview. Well, when you're in an interview, you're worried about them evaluating you, of course, right? And that's usually what most people are mostly worried about. Unfortunately, that's giving away all your power, but we're going to talk about interviewing later in the week in general, but tonight about evaluating work environment. So, so you're worried about that. You're worried about being asked questions that are hard to answer. You're worried about how you look. Does your outfit look right? How's your hair look? Are you smiling enough? What's your body language, right? There's so many things we're supposed to remember in an interview that it is hard sometimes to think about the things that we want to ask to get the information that we need. And the key to, getting the information that we need always is asking the right questions, right? Whether we're asking the right questions of ourselves, like we're doing in this coaching work, to dig deeper into our own interests and passions and, what we like, what we don't like, what makes us happy, what makes us unhappy. So we are asking ourselves the right questions, but we also need to ask others the right questions to get the information that we need. So this is a little harder because you're not going to say to an employer, hey, is this a bad place to work? Because they're clearly not going to say, excuse me, they're clearly not going to say, yes, it's a nightmare. They're obviously going to try to sell you on it being a good place to work. So, but you can tell a lot by the way they answer some particular questions. So I think we talked about a little bit about questions last week, but I have a bunch more here that I wanted to share this evening. Please write down, oh, Ellen was watching Hawaii Life. Oh, I bet that was nice. I've never been to Hawaii. I'm sure it's beautiful. So what I really want to do is just go through these questions and kind of really just touch on them about why I think they're important, what I think you can get from asking these particular questions. And then, certainly, of course, if you want to jot them down while we're talking, that would be great as well. And if you'd like me to put them together into, a file, I could do that too. I could ask Asia to load a file for us as well in the group. So, the first one I wanted to mention is, okay, so what kind of projects would a person in my position, meaning the position you're applying for, be able to own from start to finish? So the purpose of that question is to understand how much autonomy there is in the role, right? Now, you may not be someone who cares about that so much, right? So again, we have to go back to the analysis of your work environment, and if you wanted to listen to that video, if you haven't done so, that video was last Wednesday. So that is also in the videos in the group. So you can just go and listen to that. It's the Career Chat Live from last Wednesday. So, if you've evaluated, though, that it is important to you to have some independence in your work and to have some responsibility, even as an individual contributor, and really have some leadership as an individual contributor, you might want to ask that question. They might say, none, you're not going to have that. Everything's a team and you're not going to own anything from start to finish. And then, you need to evaluate, is that something that you want? Or they may tell you, someone in your position, these are the types of projects that you would own, from start to finish. And then you can also evaluate, A, would you want to do those projects, right? Is that the kind of work you want to do? And B, do you have the skills and interest and experience in order to successfully do those projects from start to finish? Can you give an example of a time that someone in my role made a suggestion that was later implemented? So I don't know about any of you, but I know when I was working in corporate, I really liked the idea of something that I thought of, being implemented. And that happened for me. And, I think that sometimes we're reluctant to ask for what we want, and we're reluctant to share our ideas, thinking that they won't be implemented. But I think if that's something that's important to you and you are a creative person and you enjoy coming up with new ideas, processes, better ways to do things, just things that the company should be doing, improvements, process improvements. If that's your thing, you probably want to be someplace where that will be respected, where someone will listen to your ideas and actually implement them. Years ago, there used to be like that joke of, the work, they have the suggestion box or, the idea box or something, and, put your suggestion in the suggestion box. And then, it was kind of, you just threw that in the trash. Nobody ever looked at that or cared about that, right? But we don't want that. We wouldn't want an organization that just pays lip service to that. So if that's something that's important to you, you really want to get a sense of, at this level and in this type of role, what types of ideas have people had, and how have they been addressed or implemented? And they, again, by what they say, it's very telling. They might tell you an example that's a great example, and you'll think, wow, that's awesome. Or they might have a hard time thinking of an example, and then that could either mean that you put them on the spot and they can't remember, or it never happened, right? So, we definitely can learn a lot from asking those types of questions. So as far as the mission of the company, that was something that we talked about last week a lot. And, the mission of the company, the public presence of the company or the organization in the world, right, and what they do and what they contribute. So looking at news stories about the company, things like that, the leadership in the company, what they stand for, the types of things they're doing in the community, are things that you want to look at. So if mission is important to you, and you want to work somewhere where your values and goals are aligned with the mission of the company, or, the vision statement, whatever we want to call that, of the company, if that's important to you, then here are some questions around that topic. So how might the person in this role contribute to the organization's mission? So, if it's important to you to contribute to the mission, to believe in the mission, and then also to know how your role will contribute to it, I think that's very telling. I think that these types of questions are also really helpful in determining whether or not the company just pays lip service to its own mission. Every company has some kind of a mission statement. They put it on their website. They might say it every once in a while. But just because they have a mission statement doesn't mean they live it, right? It doesn't mean it's important to anybody. They may just have it, just to have something out there. We need a mission statement. Somebody write one, and they just throw it out there. And they don't care, right? So, yeah, so you really want to make sure that, if they have a mission statement, they really care about it and that they're really in tune with it. So how do employees measure the impact of their work is another question around purpose and around, you making contributions. So you want to know, if you're doing something, not only how are you being judged, like in your performance evaluation, but also, more importantly in this situation, talking about mission and values is, what kind of an impact can you make? What kind of an impact can you make on the organization? What is your favorite workplace tradition, or whatever, however you want to phrase that, tradition, thing that you all do, community building thing that you do. I think that's also very telling. Some companies have some really good processes and programs in place to really make everybody feel part of the mission and really feel part. They might say, oh, every year we do a charity run for, some diseases that needs to be solved, that needs to be cured. Or maybe we all go and volunteer to clean up the river bank, or, whatever. Or, we have a big party and we celebrate our successes, or we all go on a trip together, or, whatever the case may be, right? And they're going to tell you that. And again, if they can't think of anything, then they don't do it, and then is that important to you or not, to be a part of that? So then as far as opportunities for advancement and the potential for you to grow in an organization, if you just say to somebody, is there potential for growth in this role? I mean, 9.99 out of 10 times, they're probably going to tell you yes. Unless it's a 2-person company and it's you and the one person that's hiring you are the only people that work there. If it's an organization of any size, most likely, of course, they would say yes if you just said that, right? So we want to ask these questions in a way that's a little bit more stealthy, around getting this data. So does the company promote from within, or what is the company's policy on promoting from within? Is there a preference for promoting from within? We might assume that that's always the case and that everybody promotes from within, but it's not necessarily the case. They may say something like, well, no, and actually we don't always promote from within because, the roles that we have, we find that, we need outside skills because our internal people don't, have those skills for this type of role or whatever. And then, that can help you to see, like, what are the opportunities here for you long term? Knowing what happened to your predecessor is an important thing as well. One question that's really always good to ask in an interview is, why is this role available? Is it available because of growth? Is it available because someone was promoted, because someone quit, because someone was let go? Why is this role available? And usually they won't tell you that somebody was fired. They would most likely tell you that either somebody left or they were promoted. And probably, won't give you a lot of detail around that. But again, you can tell from the way they say it. Sometimes you can even tell from body language, inflection and voice, facial expressions, right? Like some people are more expressive than others. But you can definitely tell, if they're full of crap or if it really sounds like, these people are not getting promoted from within and they're just leaving the company and there's a lot of turnover. Where does the company expect to be in the next 3 to 5 years? What are the goals? What are the goals of the organization? The only reason I think that's a little bit of a scary question is because if they haven't asked you where you see yourself in 3 to 5 years yet, and you're hoping they don't ask you that because you don't really want to answer that, that's probably not the best question to ask. But if you're comfortable with being asked that yourself and you feel prepared for that question with a reasonable answer, that obviously none of us have a crystal ball, but what your goals are, where you'd like to see yourself in 3 to 5 years. Certainly that's a good question to ask because you can learn really about what is the plan. Does this company really have a good plan? Do they have a solid growth plan? Are they all just kind of like coasting along? Or are they doing really poorly financially and they're just trying to keep afloat, right? And, they don't really have plans. They're just, trying to make it. So you can learn a lot from that type of question as well. Talking about more about how the company employees relate to each other, getting along with your coworkers is very important, and it's very difficult, obviously, to know if that's going to happen or not. Even if you get to interview with some of the people who might be your peers, which a lot of times that does happen in a panel interview, or sometimes you get asked back to talk to somebody, who's maybe in a similar role to you, or, someone who would be a peer, or someone that you would work with other than the person you'll report to. It's still hard, to tell that. Most people are going to be pretty nice to you in an interview situation, hopefully. I mean, and if they're not, then you really know it's not a good place to work. Um, but, most people are probably going to be pretty nice to you and, act pretty normal. And it's hard to tell, how that dynamic works. So some of the questions you might ask around that. When and how do team members give feedback to one another? So how is feedback, feedback from upper management down to you, that trickle down feedback is really, that's your performance evaluation. But how is feedback given, how is feedback given internally, from employee to employee? And by feedback, I mean, if you have a problem with that person, if you are not getting what you need from them, or if you want to tell them they did a great job or whatever, how is that communicated and how is that communication supported in the organization? Are there any company-sponsored activities to facilitate friendships at work? Sometimes people say, well, I don't need to be friends with people at work. That's stupid. But I'll tell you that in employee engagement surveys, there's an employee engagement survey that the Gallup poll people do. And most very large corporations for sure do this survey as part of their, or a modified or whatever, a custom version of it, for their employees. But they do these external surveys with these organizations that they collect the data, and it is no one in the company knows who said what, right? It's just all collected, and then it's given to them, the employee engagement survey, and then it's given to the leadership, and they are to hopefully listen to what the employees said, and when they see those themes of problems, to make plans around how to fix them, right? One of the questions on that survey every year is, do you have a best friend at work? And I've always found that to be kind of a silly question, because most of us would say no to that. I mean, we would say, no, my best friends are not at work, right? But do you have a best friend at work? And what that question really means is, is there someone at work that you feel close to, that you can talk to about things, you can go to with problems, you feel that you have a support person. So really, friendships and that type of interpersonal relationships in the workplace actually is really important to people in general. It might not be as important to you as it is to someone else, but it has been proven that it's important. So what is the company doing to facilitate friendships and enjoyment? Are they going for happy hours together? Are they doing company picnics? Do they have a volleyball team? Do they have I don't know, do they do yoga before work or whatever? What types of activities and things foster? Because when people do some those types of activities together, usually it does help the working relationship. And it can really tell you how much emphasis the company is placing on that, if that's important to you. And then, of course, the evaluation coming from your management as far as performance evaluations. What is the performance evaluation process? Companies that don't have a very well-crafted, organized performance evaluation process are generally companies that do not have a well-crafted anything, and are not the best places to work. So you really want to work somewhere, really everybody really should want to work somewhere where there is a good performance review process in place that is consistent and timely, and everybody does it and everybody cares about it. And actual action is taken, by both parties after those conversations. So the performance review process is very, very important, and very telling, when you ask that question. So then, as far as, excuse me, let me just take a drink of water. So then, as far as money, right? We work for money. So there's a lot of economic considerations, and there's economic considerations that go beyond just what is my salary going to be, right? And I don't recommend that you ask questions about salary early in the process at all. I recommend that you do not ask questions about salary until, honestly, ideally, you have an offer, or if they ask you, for a range or for some information about the salary that you're looking for. But by bringing up salary too early in the conversation, it really makes the interviewer feel like, you're just worried. That's all you care about. You just want money. You just care about the money. And, you're not trying to evaluate the role. You're not trying to evaluate them. And you're not really worried about their evaluation of you. You really just want to know, like, what's in it for me? I just want to show me the money, right? So, but there are still things that you can ask about to help understand how money is distributed, how raises happen, how, how profit is shared, things like that. So you can ask, do you use rewards bonuses, anything like that to motivate or, reward employees. So you can certainly ask that. There's nothing wrong with asking about the compensation structure. You're not asking for an exact number. You're asking, is there a bonus structure? Are there rewards and motivators for top performers? They're not going to give you the specifics probably around those numbers, but they're still going to tell you, yes, we have a bonus plan, and or we have these awards, or if you do such and such, you can win a trip to some great place, or you get prizes for being great, or whatever it is. And again, if that's important to you to have some kind of, then particularly in any kind of sales environment, you usually find that. But if it's important to you to have those types of motivators, then you want to know about that. How do you use ranking systems in performance reviews and compensation? Like, how do your salary bands work? Kind of understanding, just what does one have to do, right, to get more money? But you're not asking it that way. You're asking it in a way that gives you that information, but without directly asking it in that way. So, they might say, well, we don't really have salary bands. We just give out, and then in some ways it's bad when there's not a compensation structure, even though in some ways you might think it's good because they're not tied to, we can only give this person this much or this person that much based on our compensation structure and plan. Sometimes it's actually bad when that isn't in place, because then you get into favoritism and nepotism and all the tisms, right? Where you just start seeing people getting rewards that are not commensurate with what they've done, because there is no structure across the board with that. And different managers, different leaders are interpreting these policies any way they want. And, it's not a fair and equitable program and process around compensation. Now, most very large organizations do have, a compensation program in place. Donna says, do you think it is important to know what matters at work prior to applying? Yes, and that's why I think you really need to do that work of really analyzing and thinking about what it is you want in a work environment, so that you can target those environments. Because the question you asked prior to that, Donna, how about the role itself? Of course, the role itself is extremely important. That's the most important thing. But I think what happens is we're so concerned about the role that we forget about the environment piece, and that environment piece really affects the role a lot. And I think we probably can all think of jobs that we took that we thought were going to be great, and they weren't great because of the physical work environment, because of the commute, because of the way people treated each other, because of the mission of the company, the ethics of the company, all sorts of things like that really do matter in the long run. And we don't want to be out looking for another job again, in a minute, just because, we made a hasty decision to take a job just based on the role and the salary, and not thinking about the environment. So that's why that's important. We also want to have an idea about turnover. And again, we're not going to say what's your company's turnover rate. That's a little too prying, a little, they're not going to tell you that. And that's a weird question, right? So, but we want to know we want to know why people are leaving. We want to know if people are leaving, right? So what are the common reasons people leave your organization? How often do people leave your organization? Why do they leave? What do they leave for? Do they leave for other jobs? Are people mostly just retiring? Are people leaving the workforce, to have a family or whatever? Are they going back to school? Are they going on sabbatical, or are they starting their own businesses, or are they leaving to go work for competitors, and why is that an issue, if that is an issue? And then thinking about competitors. So what companies are your biggest sources of competition for talent, and how do you motivate people to stay here? Right. So it's very interesting to ask somebody about that, because they can then tell you what their strategy is around retention, and around employee engagement, and what they do about that. Or if they really just leave it to chance, well, yes, we have these competitors, XYZ. I mean, you should really know who the competitors are of the company. I don't really think you should ask them who their competitors are. I think that's something that you should probably have a good idea of before you go on the interview. But, you can say, you have these competitors. I worked in the defense industry, and there was a number of competitors in that industry that were very well known. And it's a valid question. How does, Lockheed Martin keep their people from going to Northrop Grumman? Those are two big players in that defense industry space. What are they doing to retain those people? Because those people could easily just go get a job at that competitor because that competitor wants them. And, right before COVID hit, we were really in a good economy as far as we had very low unemployment for a long time. And, I know that from my last recruiting role for sure, we were begging people to come, to interview for some pretty high level jobs. Holding onto people's legs, like, please come work for us. Technical graduates, especially engineering, IT graduates with really good grades from good schools, they were getting 4, 5, 6 offers, like 6 to 8 months before they graduated. And of course, with COVID now, we're not seeing that anymore, but we will see it again. And we will recover, I believe that very strongly, because things were very strong before this hit. And I definitely think we will see that recovery. Do I know when? No, of course not, because I don't have a crystal ball. But if I did have a crystal ball, I would definitely say that it is going to happen. So Donna asks, how about a company with no turnover? That's kind of weird. If somebody says they have no turnover, I almost wouldn't believe them. I would do some research around that on looking at reviews of the company. You can go to Glassdoor, you can go to LinkedIn. I'm not sure if Indeed does company reviews as well, but there's a lot of sites now that do company reviews for employees and former employees, and you can kind of take a look at that and see like what people are saying, especially former employees, like will say, especially if they were unhappy, they'll certainly say why they left. And also networking with other people who have currently work or have worked for the company. And again, probably your more telling responses are the people that used to work for the company because they are not bound to the company anymore and are probably more likely to give you an honest answer if it's a negative answer. But yes, the key to all of this for sure is getting clear on what it is you want before you start coming up with your list of questions that you want to ask, or, and in some cases, you might not even have to ask these questions of the interviewer because you can do some of this research. So, a small PR firm, Donna, might not have a lot of turnover. Maybe it's a small, close-knit group of people, that work together really well, and they really enjoy each other and they enjoy working together, and it's a well-oiled machine, and that's great. That's great. If you buy it and you think that it seems true that everybody's happy and they don't have a lot of turnover, that's super. That's a super sign, I think. And again, you have to think about the size of the company and the type of work that they do. And, usually if you go to interview for a small firm like that, you probably will meet most of the people, if not all the people that work there before they hire you. And you can see how the people interact with each other. This is all much harder now because of COVID and because a lot of interviewing is being done as we're doing right now, right? So we're over video on interviewing and we're not getting to go into an office and seeing, what it actually looks like there, because maybe you'll be working from home for a while. Maybe you'll always be working from home, right? But it is important still to evaluate whatever it is you can see, so whatever it is you can see. And certainly when you're interacting with the people, even if you're on a panel interview, if there's more than one person doing the interview, even if it's only 2 people, you can learn a lot from the way those people interact with each other, because you can really tell sometimes, do these people really get along, or are they just pretending to get along just because they've been asked to do this interview panel thing? Do they really kind of hate each other? You'll even see sometimes people be a little snarky with each other, during a panel interview, like they interrupt each other, or, maybe somebody rolls their eyes when somebody asks a question, or, you can really tell from body language, attitude, facial expressions, sometimes just the way people are interacting with each other, the way they interact with the boss, how they act when the boss is present, maybe versus how they act when the boss is not present, maybe in another interview you might do with them. So it is just really important to evaluate the environment. So I really wanted to just do this additional bonus session tonight, just to kind of reinforce what we talked about last week, and to give you a little bit more ideas around what types of things you want to ask about, and what types of things you want to find out about, and how to do that without, just coming right up and saying, questions that are basically kind of like, hey, do you guys suck? Because they're not going to say, yeah, we suck, And if they do, then you really run for the parking lot. But, so you need to ask those questions, but you also need to know what is important to you. Because again, why ask a question if you don't care about the answer, right? If you're not worried if there's a bonus structure, don't ask that question. If you don't care about having friends at work, don't ask that question. If you're not worried about how much autonomy you have on projects, don't ask that question. But you need to put together some questions that do address the things that are important to you, because you might get a great offer from them that looks really good on paper, but again, you have to remember that you are going to have to actually do the job. I used to tell people all the time when I was a recruiter, when they'd apply for something and I'd be skeptical whether or not it was a good fit for them, and I'd say, not only do you want to get the job, meaning get the offer, if you take the offer, now you have to do the job. And if you're not going to like that for any reason, that's only going to get worse and worse and worse. It's going to, just be like this circular thing that just devolves down, and then you're stuck in the ditch again. And then you're looking for help again to figure out how to get out of the ditch, right? So I want to help you guys to get out of your career stuck ditch and find what you really want and start to move your career forward, and then get your career more to a level of, now you're doing lifelong career management and growth of your career, as opposed to constantly reacting to either unemployment, underemployment, unhappy employment, lack of promotion, a new bad boss, a new bad coworker, changes in the market, whatever. You'll be more on top of your career and more of an architect of your career and a designer. That's why I called my membership community Career Happiness Studio, because I like the concept of designing your career and not just waiting for things to happen to you, waiting for people to come to you with offers, waiting for people to have all the power and decide whether or not you get the job or you get to do the thing you want to do. Now, obviously, do people have some power over us? Well, of course. I mean, yes, they do. But by focusing on that and not being an architect of our own careers, we're giving them all the power, and they don't deserve all the power. They deserve some power because, yes, they can pay you and they can give you opportunities, but they need you as well. They need employees in order to meet their goals and objectives, and they need good employees and engaged employees and happy employees and smart employees, right, and experienced employees and skilled employees and educated employees. So, you're all those things, and, they need you. So I hope this was helpful. Tomorrow we are going to talk about rocking your job search content and getting it all in place. So what I mean by content is your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, and getting those to what I say, scream the target that you want, and so that there is no doubt in anyone's mind when they look at your stuff, seeing what does this person want to do, why do they want to do it, why should we give them a chance to do it, and then getting you in front of that person that you can now go to the interview and actually be able to talk to someone. So it's getting past the gatekeepers. So tomorrow we're really going to talk at noon about how to craft all your job search content to get past the gatekeepers for the roles that you really, really want. There will be more prizes for homework tomorrow and more fun and games. So I hope to see you guys at noon Eastern tomorrow. And then we will also do another bonus session tomorrow at 8. So I will see you ladies tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. And we didn't lose power, and I think the storm has passed. So I think maybe we're in the clear. So have a wonderful evening. Talk to you ladies soon. Bye-bye.